What's up, everybody? It's Mr. Toad's favorite nerd, and today we are looking at Transformers Legacy Wildrider. I say Mr. Toad because Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, the old... Look, if you know, you know. I'm not going to explain it to you. Be that as it may, I have a lot of interesting things to say about this, and I have a little bit of told you so. Told you so. Bobby's crazy until what? Bobby's right, and I'll prove it in this video. But not right now, mind you. I'll make you wait. First, we're going to talk about accessories. And like the other Stunticons, he comes with two guns, one for each of you, and they both have some paint accents on it, which is always welcomed, and they've been doing a fair bit. They have 5mm ports and pegs that can do just about anything that you can think of if given the opportunity, which includes him holding them just fine, or you can even stick one on his leg. The guns can also peg in to the top of the vehicle mode. All right, so let's talk about the figure. We'll get in tight on the head sculpt for Dennis. I think it's okay. I actually think the lips are a little too high on the face. That would be my one sort of issue with it. Otherwise, it looks good. Metallic purple for the eyes and red for the face. Moving out to the torso, we have silver and blue paint added. That all looks good. And we have a waist swivel. I know what you're thinking. Look at that. What in the Aaron Ross? What in the 127 hours is this? Good night. What kind of hike is this dude going on? Ugh. This dude doesn't have a camel pack. He has just the whole camel. He has an elephant pack. Unreal. Shoulders. They get out to past 90 degrees, to be fair, and we have some nice red paint on them. You also swivel around until you get to the backpack, and you kind of maneuver around it. Bicep swivel with some hollow bits, forearms with some hollow bits, with an elbow that gets you 90 degrees with some nice red paint once again. The red paint on this guy is actually done quite nicely. So let's take a look at the whole figure. Back out, brush them. We have these hips. They are poorly toleranced. So they should move easily. They don't. They kind of get stuck in little notches, and then, like, I should be able to move this back to center, but it snaps back, and that's a tolerance issue. So that's not the best. Actually, you have a hard time kind of getting it in a decent A stance. It's not impossible, but it's not as easy as it should be because the joints kind of want to snap back, and you can't get it past the breaking point. You can't get like a small A stance to there because it'll snap back. But you do get the full Van Damme, and you do get the full Monty, and you do get some hollowness. Thigh swivel, single hinge knee that gets you 90 degrees. We have an ankle that gets you a tilt up, nothing really down, but it does get you a rocker. And you have some car detailings that we'll talk about more when we get to the car. Whoa, mama. And more importantly, guess what this guy does? This guy fixes the proportion issue. The proportion issue that I've been talking about with these guys the whole time, that a fair swath of you have been saying that I was wrong about. Well, guess what? This guy fixes it. And I was right. It 100% had to do with the legs. My buddy Sam thought maybe it was the size of the head, or perhaps even the torso. I think I suggested the torso. It was 100% the legs. This guy does not look like a little kid getting ready to go to school, and I'll show you why. Look at how the other legs are done. This guy has a longer thigh and more black and white knee area, where these guys, basically the guys on the left and right, trade in their knees for just big old shins. And as a result, you lose proportion, at least one that looks good. Now, here's the thing. If you have to acknowledge that the proportions are different on these because they just are. That's an objective acknowledgement. If you think that this guy is proportioned better, because he is, and you gave me a bunch of grief about me saying the proportions were wrong on these guys, then you owe me an apology. And luckily, I have the comment section still open for you to post as such. And I will humbly and graciously accept your apology. Bobby's crazy until Bobby's right. Now, if you prefer this proportion to this proportion, that's fine. But you at least had to acknowledge there is a difference in such. And you better keep that energy with this guy, because this guy is better proportioned. His backpack is a nightmare, but he's better proportioned. All right, let's get him transformed. So open up the chest, close this up, close that up, flip the hands in, sit these down by his side, bring the hood pieces up, close the windshield, Actually, keep the windshield open because this hood needs to come down in there first, so to speak. There. This is a little bit of a nightmare. Bring this down, and then that's the front part. Spin the waist around 180. Take the, flip them up, and then use them. Don't use them. I feel like I'm gonna break it. To peel this piece back, and then these kind of like flip over old school style, which is a bit of nostalgic charm for me. Closes up. These pieces come around, and I'll get it cleaned up. We'll take a look at it. That's basically it. I would imagine it rolls once again on a more solid surface. Something that's a little less slick. The red stripe looks good, but it does get a little washed out because it's a different type of red. Like this is a more vibrant red, which is a bit of a bummer. The Decepticon symbol looks good. And the wheels are all painted, which is nice, but they still have that like press-on bit on the back wheels, which is not great. But I think overall it's fine. A lot of translucent reds here, which does get you some gray paint, but I'm not sure that it looks as good as if it was just painted red, specifically with this type of red in there. And there it is with Tiger Tracks. Final thoughts-wise, we'll start with the negatives. I think we all have to admit that the backpack is just disgusting. Probably, if not arguably, one of the worst backpacks I've ever seen in my history of reviewing transforming figures. It is awful. It's not aesthetically pleasing. It doesn't look purposeful. It just looks like parts they couldn't figure out thrown on his back in an odd array of shapes and sizes. If you think his backpack looks good, I think you have silly opinions regarding aesthetic choices for backpacks. I bet you never had one that looked like this when you went to school, because they would have laughed you right out of 3rd grade. Anyway, still has some of those deluxe class articulation limitations regarding the wrist swivel. You don't get an ankle tilt down here either. Not the biggest deal in the world for either, but worth noting. I also think the face is a little squinched, with the mouth sits a little too high towards the nose. That is a nitpick, admittedly, but it's one of mine. Also, it should be pointed out, like there's the whole hip issue with tolerance, and then it's kind of a clumsy transformation as well, specifically where you have to get the hood below the windshield. Just not the best there. But otherwise, that's all I got. But there are positives here. The red paint is really stunning, specifically on the arms. It gets a little washed out on the legs, but they did a really nice job of it on the arms. They also did nice paint on the chest. The paint details that are added to this guy kind of across the board do more good than harm, which isn't always the case. I also think that the majority of the articulation works fairly well. In fact, given the limitations, I think that most of the articulation, in fact, makes up for it. And then, of course, I think they got the proportions right, and I celebrate that. Good on them for getting the proportions right. Love to see it. And then I think the car mode is pretty effective. Does the trick. Decent little offering. And aside from that one little hiccup in the transformation with the hood / windshield bit, it's pretty straightforward. It's not necessarily clever, but it's at least straightforward, which you might expect. So yeah, I don't know. I think that this is probably the weakest of them all. However, simultaneously, the best proportioned of the limbs. Am I right? Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.